Who ran schools, operation, managed schools, facilities, building management, police departments that managed fleets of vehicles and crime and stuff, and the fire departments. So to me, it was still just siloed customers, and I was trying to figure out how do we connect these unconnected edge devices.
Hi, everyone. This is Raza Jafri, founder and CEO of Meta World X, and I'd love to welcome you to another edition of Twin Talk. So, for today at Twin Talk, we have Ali Asad Hasan. And before I pass it over to him to introduce himself, I'd love to have the ability to introduce you all to this amazing individual who I've had the pleasure to meet multiple times as we travel the world and bring smart cities and the concepts of IoT and digital twins to a whole nother level. Ali Asad Hasan has a very strong background. He has an economics degree from UT Austin. He's spent several years, 12 years at Cisco as global software sales manager in IoT software. And now he works at Amazon, at AWS in global smart cities and IoT partnerships for the public sector. So please welcome Ali Asad Hasan. Very nice to have you here.
Thanks, Raza. How are you, man?
I am excellent. It's always nice to see you. Every time I see you, I realize, I live in a place that's very cold because you're always reminding me how you love playing pickleball and you get to play it outdoors, my friend.
I mean, we got a little share. I'm in Houston for everyone, but we got a little bit of share of what you guys experienced. We got some snow this year, which was fun. My kids got to make snowmen, and but it was good for one day, and the next day it kind of melted away, and we're like, good. That was a good
Really,
experience. We're back to Texas.
one day of Canadian weather. Well,
Exactly.
you'd be happy to hear that we are in like a very, very difficult situation these days because, as you heard about the accident recently at the Toronto airport, unfortunately, with the aircraft, the amount of snow and the winds this year have been causing havoc. But a little secret between me and you, my wife, she was kind of upset because when that was happening, I was in Miami. So, but it's nice to be back home. We're looking forward to the warmer weather, and what's really exciting about having a guest like yourself here is it gives the audience of Twin Talk the ability to understand, the people that are behind the innovation, the people that are the driving force at AWS when it comes to the IoT partnerships, the work that you're doing, especially for myself as an entrepreneur in the digital twin space. I see the impact you're making in the Middle East, especially because you're in the United States, because we are in North America. It would be really nice for everyone to get an understanding of your background, how your journey started, how you ended up here, and where the future is taking us, especially when it comes to smart cities. So without further ado, I wanted to first touch into your background.
Yeah.
So specifically your journey, what can you share with us that inspired you to get involved in smart cities? Because as you and I were growing up here in North America, this concept hadn't really evolved. Me, as you know, in urban planning, we were studying concepts of gentrification, revitalizing neighborhoods. How can we make neighborhoods more accessible for the larger population? But this concept started playing out more recently, I think in the last 5 to 10 years. So I'd love to hear about your journey into this space.
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for the opportunity. I'm really excited to be here. I've seen episodes of Twin Talk with you. You've had other amazing guests, and I'm like, this is pretty cool. I get to talk to Raza in a more formal capacity. I know we've had a lot of informal conversations, so I'm excited to be here. Looking forward to this conversation. Yeah, my background as far as goes, yeah, like you said, I went to UT Austin. I was an econ major. Came out, just basically worked at a 401k pension plan management company. Did a desk job, absolutely hated it, right? And wanted to get back out there, meet customers and people. So I got into Cisco as they used to have this, or they still do, called a Cisco Sales Associate Program, which is 1 year of just training. It's, think of it like an MBA, right? Where you just go and get trained on technology and networking and stuff, but not just tech training, it's also business training, sales tactics and management, budget management, all that kind of stuff. So I went through that entire training, got a bunch of tech certifications. And it's interesting because my background was economics, business, and then I suddenly made a complete switch to tech. I had no engineering degree, nothing, but it was just, growing up, I'm from Pakistan as well, and growing up as a kid, you always had that thing to tinker with stuff and break it and fix it, and that little insect was always in there with me. So I followed that and went through the tech route. It was fun. Cisco was great. I enjoyed it. So that's where I got into public sector, right? And honestly, I didn't even understand the concept of public sector back then. For me, it was like, oh wait, government does so much. I honestly thought government just collects taxes. That's it. And I'm like, oh wow, schools fall under that too. Oh my God, public services. There's like waste management. All this is government. So it was a learning curve for me as I was covering public sector. And yeah, all along I kind of did that. So I did the engineering route, sales engineering. Then I realized, hey, the dark side seems more attractive. So I switched to sales and I did that. But I was always focused on IoT. And back then, IoT for Cisco was basically, they did this acquisition of a video surveillance company. And they're like, hey, we have this video surveillance portfolio. We can sell to schools and counties and traffic management systems. Who's the new guy on the team who's got nothing to do? Here, go figure it out. And I was that guy, right? So I kind of was like, all right, let me figure out what this video service is. And that's where I started learning this concept of connecting things and devices and data flow and getting value and stuff. So that was my first foray into the IoT space and connected devices and stuff. Um, so that's where I got exposed to, and again, even back then, I didn't understand the concept of smart cities, right? I was just meeting with customers who ran schools, managed schools, facilities, building management, police departments that managed fleets of vehicles and crime and stuff, and the fire departments. So to me, it was still just siloed customers, and I was trying to figure out how do we connect these unconnected edge devices and trying to get them value. When I and then within Cisco, I did a little bit of manufacturing as well. So I went to the private sector, did like manufacturing, covered China and all. But then when I came to AWS, I joined AWS as a partner manager for smart cities. And the idea was, hey, we need you to curate a portfolio of software vendors or technology companies that are building solutions for smart cities on AWS. And then I was getting ready for the interview and I started doing some digging and I'm like, what is this smart city stuff, right? Let me just do some homework. Unfortunately, there was no chat GPT then. So I had to do my own homework. um, but I started realizing, hey, everything I've been doing so far kind of is smart cities, right? All of these different capabilities from public sector come together, and that is the definition of smart cities. So that's how I got into it, and I got excited. And then it's been 6 years at AWS, and yeah, I'm just kind of connected with you and other innovative vendors. And I think to me, that's the most exciting thing. Two angles: one, how cities and counties, communities, whatever, are looking to use technology to innovate with still the same goal of, hey, how do we create value for our customer, which is citizens, right? But on the flip side, I didn't realize there's so many cool technology companies out there doing such exciting stuff because I was working for one company and my focus was just that. And I was like, this is it. Networking is the beginning of the end of the world. It it opened up my eyes to realize, wow, there's a lot that goes on as in a city, and there's a lot of tech companies that are providing solutions to that city. So that's kind of how I got into it. That's what's got me excited and kind of still been in that space. And that's how I met you.
Yeah, that's exactly how we met. So, what's really interesting for the benefit of the audience is, um, he, because of the success that Ali Asad has, had coming from Cisco and AWS, it's actually been beneficial not just to ecosystem partners, but for new startups as well. And that kind of ties into our story. I was thinking about it. I was like, should we mention this or not? But very quickly, I do think it's important. So if there's anyone watching out there, especially when you come from the startup space and you're interested in bringing solutions in the smart city world, um, our story, you may find it very exciting because it was in Barcelona at the World Smart City Congress, where we were launching Meta World X. This was in November of 2022.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Do you remember which booth it was that we ran into each other again?
Uh, I don't know. It was, yeah, next to the AWS booth and maybe USA Pavilion or something like that. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
so I think we mentioned this in the Twin Talk with Ali Ben Fatoum. So it was the Medina, the city of Medina booth, and I was there and I was blown away with the model, the 3D model that they created, and I was talking to one of the representatives from the city of Medina, and that's where I noticed that you were there as well, and I was just so shocked because we had met 6 months before that in the U.S. And you're like, what are you doing here? And I told you, and you're like, you know what? This is amazing. This is exciting. Let me connect you to this person, this person, this person. And next thing you know, you were there. You were at my talk that I was giving along with Microsoft, Dassault Systems, etc. And you were there to witness the launch of Meta World X. And I know I've probably told this to you before, but I'm saying it again. I want to thank you so much for your guidance, your support, your constant belief in a company like ours, because it helped. It really helped ignite what was about to come, and that helped with the partnerships that we ended up achieving in Europe, especially with your help, with your guidance, and launching the MVP, and then eventually being at the AWS booth at Leap in Saudi Arabia. So you were a major catalyst in the growth and the initial spark that was required to launch Meta World X. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. Any startups out there? Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
no worries at all. I'll just say, yeah, first of all, yeah, I love seeing when, startups and companies really flourish. And it's not just the connection, but I think it's the value you're providing. Right? You guys are obviously doing something that's valuable. Otherwise, no one would care. So clearly there's value in what you're creating. But I do remember that instance when we met, and in my role, I meet a lot of startups, right? And there's a lot of cool ones. I think what stood out for you guys was a couple of things for me, right? First of all, in that first meeting, I know we'd met earlier in Houston, but when we met, and I'll be honest with you, when we met in Barcelona and you approached me, I forgot I didn't recognize you. And you're like, hey man, remember me? It's like, we met in Houston. And I was like, yeah, I do. And then you started telling me and it came back to me. But I loved your energy. And you were like this energizer bunny, all hyped up. I love that energy. So that's what piqued my interest at first. I'm like, wow, this guy's really passionate about what he's doing. And then obviously the solution and the tech backed up with that, right? And also the second thing I'll say is, I know after that we had follow-up conversation.
This is embarrassing because I didn't know you didn't recognize me.
This is the risk you take when you call me on a webinar, unscripted webinar.
I love it. I love it.
No, the other thing I loved was a few months after that, you and I had a conversation. You're like, hey man, what do I do? How do I get in front of AWS customers and sellers? And I told you, I'm like, look, if you can build something that we can showcase, right? Something tangible like a demo or something, then that becomes an asset that everyone can take around and be like, hey, look what our partner is doing. Because we have a lot of partners, but we don't have a lot of demos. And I remember we had that conversation. 2 weeks later, you called me and said, hey, look, we built this. So that was the second time I got blown away. I was like, wow, these guys move fast. I'm like, honestly, I thought it's going to be 6 months before I hear from you. In 2 weeks, you had an up and running demo on AWS, something that we could showcase. And I think that it wasn't just me connecting you to people, but I think the fact that you had something tangible and your team worked so fast, we were able to say, all right, where can we showcase this? That's when you got to Belgium and, Saudi and all those places
Yeah.
because you had something tangible. So, I mean, kudos to you and your team to spinning up stuff fast.
No, absolutely. Listen, you don't get all these type of opportunities often. So when you get it, you have to grab it and go. And any startup founder that's watching this, the best advice I can give you is, yeah, even if you don't really know the person, just jump and be as enthusiastic as possible, because they might be attracted to your energy. And then if you could back that up with your solution, go for it. And that's exactly what Ali Asad is talking about. But for me, I did remember him because you know meeting someone in Houston that works in AWS, especially for smart cities at the level that he has, and his background in Cisco was very impressed. I was impressed with the personality. I was impressed with the person that I had met, and I never forgot about him. But I was waiting for the right opportunity to contact him and connect with him. It just happened by chance to be at the conference where I really needed to meet him, that he was there. And well, actually, it doesn't happen by chance. It was meant to be.
Yeah.
So I'm really grateful for that. And now moving forward, in terms of we're starting to see a lot of things happening with AI. A lot of things, when things we're just coming out of the conference in Miami, where the Future Investment conference, where the Minister of Technology of Saudi Arabia gave an amazing speech of artificial intelligence and why Saudi Arabia is the future. And we know that last year when we were at Leap with AWS, there was an investment of $5.3 billion by AWS announced specifically for Saudi Arabia. Can we talk more about, artificial intelligence, where AI is playing a leading role, especially when it comes to innovative solutions, smart buildings, smart cities, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, every conversation is now has AI in it, right? You can't have a conversation, a tech conversation, without AI at least being discussed or brought upon or having a strategy. And I think all customers across public sector or non-public sector are starting to think, what's our AI strategy? What's our data strategy? Right? They have to put a plan together, and all the customers are doing that. I'll be honest that there's also a lot of hype, and we saw this with smart cities as well, right? Like 10, 15, 20 years ago when smart cities came out, it was a lot of hype. It was very tech forward, where the tech companies, big tech companies came out and said, oh, you need this, absolutely, connect everything, cities will be amazing. But there wasn't a lot of time spent in the past with smart cities on what are the problems you're running into, what challenges do you have, right? And let's figure out how technology can help address that. So somewhere along the way, in the last 10 years, I think, or 15 years, that realization shift happened. And now smart cities is becoming more relevant because targeted to specific challenges and issues cities are having. So I think same thing with AI, right? I think AI is smarter than that. The AI conversation are not that tech hype. There's tangible data behind it. But it's very important to not just get excited by the potential of AI, but also try to connect it to how is it useful to me right now or your customers right now, right? So when it comes to smart cities, yeah, and in the US and globally, we're seeing a lot of this generative AI, the concept of being able to take your data, uh, run it against foundation models or large language models, and then create content, right? Generate content. And this content outside of smart cities in the video editing space, it's all like these amazing graphics and images and stuff, document processing and stuff. But in smart cities, it's just simple stuff like, hey, if I'm a traffic management operator, I have all this data, historical data on how traffic patterns are run. How can I create the best routes for my cities with minimal accidents, right? How do I do that with all this data? Maybe AI can generate that for me, traffic patterns, right? From a public safety perspective, we have all this data on how traffic accidents take place, crime takes place, areas and stuff like that. How do we come up with so generate? How do we generate? I want to use the word generate. How do we generate a new policy? How do we generate a new strategy or some idea around how can we go to vision zero, reduce accidents? How do we reduce crime, right? So those business objectives that CIOs and mayors have, I think AI is the bridge to getting the IoT piece, which is connect devices, the data analytics piece, which is put all the data in one place and get some visualization out of it, connect all of that to the outcome,
Mhm.
right? That little gap in between, I think AI can reduce that to say, we got the data, we connect all the devices, we have stored it in one place, we've harmonized it, but now AI can help you get to that outcome because now you can generate content, you can get insights, you can automate stuff and realize, hey, I can reduce my air quality or improve my air quality by 25% by using these methodologies prescribed to me by AI, which has looked into my specific data set, right? Looking at my city, looking at my environment. So, yeah, go ahead.
No, got it. And so there's obviously integration challenges, some of them that you just mentioned right now. So what are the key challenges in integrating emerging digital solutions right now for smart cities? Because now the dust is settling and we're starting to see spyware coming out, with huge opportunities for cities to push their data into an open source catalog like that. Where do you see the challenges and the opportunities?
There is technology and then there's just government politics, right? So let's keep government politics aside, is just getting, we'll keep it aside, but I do want to say, I think one of the challenges is getting within a city or a community or a country, whatever, there's always different leadership structures, right? You have the CIO or the data officer as a leader that may or may not have a vision. I think that's very important. It's very important to have someone at the top with a clear vision to say, 5, 10 years, this is where we see our city going, and this is the services we want to provide to our constituents or citizens, right? And that needs to filter through down to all the different departments, organizations, right? So that's the opportunity, but also the challenge because if today data is in silos across all these departments, public safety, um, traffic management, police department, fire department, tax revenue, elections, they all have their own unique data sets, which are extremely valuable. But without that centralized vision, those data sets are not talking to each other because the agencies may or may not be talking to each other, right? The personnel. So you need that vision at top to say, let's bring all these conversations together and try to see if we can get cross vertical insights above that, right? So there's obviously the politics and the business side of that. And then the second piece is the technology side, right? Even if all of us agree that yes, connect everything, we still need to understand, hey, all these data is in different format. And I know you and I have talked about this, but Ali Ben Fatoum, who was on your thing before, has created something called the Garnet framework, which is built on Fireware, which is the idea of taking disparate data sources, bringing them into a central open being the key, open source environment, and you can host this on AWS, selfish plug. But yeah, once it's there, now you can contextualize the data and try to build digital twins on top that you guys provide, get some analytics, AI, everything goes on top. But it's very important to get the fundamentals right as well.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the top layer won't function effectively.
Now, you brought up leadership, and I completely agree with you. Cities, the biggest issue is, okay, how are we going to compile all this together? The data exists in silos. Where do you see? I know right now in the United States and Canada, we're kind of lagging behind, unfortunately. But do you see any hope? Do you see any, outliers that are actually pushing this ahead right now?
Yeah. So, yeah, globally, obviously, because of the way the governance is, everything is a little more centralized in some parts of the world. So it's very easy to have that centric approach for data, policy, decision-making process, everything. US is very distributed. Budgets are distributed. Every department has their own budget. Decision-making is distributed, which has its value as well, right? Not to say that's wrong. There's value in that, but it's hard to bring that together. So I think our approach also has to change. We have to realize smart city in the US is not an entire city completely getting digitized and we have jets and stuff flying around everywhere. It's going to be siloed decision making, which means our approach needs to be, I don't want to say siloed, but very specific to our customer. So in case I'm talking to a public safety director, right, I need to understand what their specific challenges are and then address those challenges with the technology solution. So I've met that piece of the smart city, but then also give them the vision to say, hey, you've bought into this. This is great. The solution helps you. Just think about it 5 years, 10 years down the road. How will you be able to connect this to traffic if you want to talk to your peer in traffic, right? And they may be like, yeah, I don't know right now, but in 5 years, I may want to talk to them because together we could do vision zero. It's like, great, open source maybe is the way to go. So if you start putting those plugs while still addressing their individual needs, I think slowly we can build that. And we're seeing that with, I'll give an example, Coral Gables, which is close to Miami. They're a great customer of AWS, and they've got this idea of connecting everything together. Their fire chief talks to the CIO. They all very harmoniously work, and they have like a great digital twin solution. There's a small environment, Ashwin, Ashwin. They do it outside of city of Houston. Generation Park is a private development. They're building a private 4,400 acre development from the ground up, and they're thinking holistically. They're like, hey, We're going to have schools here. We're going to have environment, district, and stuff, entertainment, sustainability. Let's think from the ground up. How do we have an open approach? Have everything connected? So I think it's creating the education, creating the awareness, but then also addressing those individual today's challenges, not just being so caught up in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And I love how you actually gave a concrete example of what what how the city is working together, making this happen. In terms of data security and privacy, now this is something that you get asked probably all the time. Especially in the cloud. How do you answer this question about data management with a massive influx of data that's coming out of silos from smart cities programs, the APIs, managing the data analytics while ensuring the data security and privacy? How do you solve that?
So I'll give you a very AWS answer, right? Because that's my focus, but I think this applies to any of the wherever you host an application. So AWS is we call it the shared responsibility model. Shared responsibility model. Sorry, I talk fast. The idea is that the security of the data and the application is a shared responsibility between us and our customers, right?
Mm.
And the thing is, hey, look, we provide the infrastructure, right? The data center, the infrastructure, the servers, the databases, everything's provided by AWS. The responsibility of securing that from not just a physical perspective, but also servers, software, patching, prevention, hacking, all that stuff. That's AWS's responsibility, right? But then the application you put on top or host in that, how you build that application, how you're addressing security principles in that, how you're implementing security technology in that, that is a customer's responsibility, right? So that's a shared responsibility. However, what we don't want to do is to say, all right, it's your responsibility to figure it out, right? AWS provides a lot of different services to help you build an application where security is sort of thought through from the bottom end, right? So yeah, as you're doing user authentication, encryption, data, analysis and stuff, you're making sure there's layers of authentication, and uh, yeah, all the stuff. Yeah, I'm forgetting all the terms, but basically, data security is built from the ground up. So we have tools and services to help you with that. But then we also provide guidances, which is basically like best practices to say, hey, if
Mm.
you're an application on AWS, this is probably 5 things you should think about from a design perspective to make sure every aspect of your application is secure, right? And then if you're ingesting data from your customers, this is probably the most secure way to ingest it. This is how
Correct.
you store it. This is how you encrypt it. This is how you make sure customer A's data is not being accessed by customer B, right? So there's principles around all this, and we have a lot of architectural designs and stuff to help customers um, build around that and guidance.
Excellent. That's amazing. We knew you would have that covered at AWS. That's not a surprise to the audience. So now
Yeah,
in terms of
security is day zero. Everything, that's the first thing you have to think about, right?
that's it, absolutely. And because you're handling people's data, and
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we see it all the time that privacy concerns are on the rise, and with that, we have to be ahead of the problem rather than reactive. So,
Indeed.
in terms of emerging trends, because unfortunately we're running out of time, I really wanted to check in on this. Is how do you see emerging technologies such as blockchain or the metaverse intersecting with smart city development over the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years?
Um, okay, I'll give you a candid approach, right? I mean, the tech forward approach is, yeah, it's going to be amazing. It's going to change the world, right? Metaverse is going to be great. Like we can see use cases where, a lot of the simple interactions like City Hall, right? You go to City Hall to do your driver's license renewal and stuff. We've in some cities we've moved from a physical City Hall visit to now a digital one. You can
Yeah.
go online and do these services, right? In the future, these could be created in some sort of a digital twin or metaverse environment where I have a um, avatar or something that interacts with the DMV and gets all my services done, get my tax payments and everything done, right? A very gamification, which is you guys excel at that, right? So real in the future we could see that. I don't know if every smart city, every city is going to be able to approach that or even wants to approach that. I think some of the forward thinkers, Dubai, some of the Middle Eastern countries may have the appetite for that. Um, for the mainstream cities, it may or may not be a thing, right? Where I do feel, and this goes back to your background actually with prop tech, right? I know you have a background with that, where I feel this whole simulation thing, multiverse thing is a little more realistic as new projects, right? And I'll give you an example. suppose a city's issuing an RFI or RFX for a new bridge that they're going to construct, right? Or a new district they're going to develop, a multi-use district outside of the ballpark for the next, and I'm giving you Houston's doing this.
Yeah.
For the next soccer World Cup that's coming to Houston, right? We want to develop a whole new district. How do you get buy-in from the constituents? Because they're tax dollars that are going to pay for some of this stuff. How do you get buy-in from them, right? So one way is you issue these documents. No one's going to read it, let's be honest, right? The other is, hey, potentially, what if we could create a multiverse environment or a simulation to say, hey, once this project is complete, this is going to be your experience. If you come to a ballpark, this is how you're going to interact. This is going to be the, vendors over there. This is how it's going to be set up. And now, me as a citizen will be like, wow, this is cool. I want my city to have this. I vote yes on prop whatever, proposition. So that's, I think, a cool way to use these technologies to get some real impact today. Maybe, get those budgets approved and get those voting and stuff, and get buy-in. And simple example is between Dallas and Houston, they've been trying to build a bullet train, and there's a lot of hurdles. I don't know, maybe something like this could help to say, hey, if a train goes by, this is how your city could change the economic development stuff.
I love that. Yeah. It's amazing that you brought that up, because citizen engagement and using technology to empower citizens. So a lot of the times, the cities that we work with or the cities that we talk to, whether it's AWS or Meta World X, we receive the same feedback. They're like, we need a solution to attract investment, right? So like a tech company like ours, we look at what tech they're currently using to see if the city, if they have the data centers, if they have, what kind of internet speeds, or, do they have fiber, simple things like that. But what are we doing to cultivate the citizens' interests that are living there today, and be able to justify mega projects or where tax money is going by showing the economic value, but also, the human value, how this can, increase the quality of life or save lives, or prepare us for emergencies. I think that is definitely the direction that we want to take this together. And I love the idea that you gave of soccer, because anybody listening, he's talking about football, who may not understand that. But yeah, here in North America, we have a huge opportunity with FIFA coming. These are economic drivers. They do bring in people from all over the world. But as we're trying to attract people from all over the world, we have to look at how we can increase the quality of life for the people that are already here. So with that, unfortunately, I don't know where time went. I got a message saying that we hit time. But it's so nice to always connect with you, to speak to you. I learned so much from you, and everything that you're doing. I really appreciate it.
No, it's happy to have the conversation. Yeah, enjoy working with you and your team as well. You guys are doing some cool stuff, and really enjoyed the opportunity, and thanks for it.
And anybody working in the smart cities, smart buildings, IoT space, please reach out directly to Ali Asad Hasan. We're going to have his details at the end of this Twin Talk. But thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. I can't wait to see you hopefully next month in San Antonio. And take care. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.